NFL Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube and YouTube TV, which means that it just got easier to be an NFL fan, even if you live far away. Like maybe you like the Bears, but you're hibernating in Panthers territory. But with NFL Sunday Ticket, your out-of-market team is never more than a short distance away. Specifically, the distance from you to your remote control. NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. Go to youtube.com/presale to get $50 off.
Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends 9/19. No refund. Subscription auto renews.
Alarm. Take MitoQ. Run, shower, breakfast, kids to school, work time, home time, dinner time, fun time, bedtime. Whew. When you're leading a full life, MitoQ can make all the difference. MitoQ is a science-based cell health supplement that helps your trillions of cells generate renewable daily energy. Because energy is renewable. Time is not. Discover more at mitoq.com. That's MITOQ.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and The Pavilion with me, your host, Stephen Wallace. After a batch of Ashes podcasts, we are back to horse racing and back to Birdsville, the iconic outback racecourse in Queensland, Australia, which is due to hold its annual two-day meeting on the 1st and 2nd of September. For those listeners who can remember, I previously featured 3 episodes about Birdsville ahead of last year's two-day meeting. Go back to episodes 148 to 150 to hear my podcasts about the Birdsville Cup, the journey to the outback, and jockey John Keating's quest to win the cup. Back to today's show. You will shortly hear from Birdsville Races Vice President Gary Brook, a guest on episode 148, who in 2 separate interviews talks about the challenges of 2022 before looking forward to this year's meeting. Thanks for joining us again, Gary.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Gary, you had a very hectic few days before the race. Can you sort of explain some of the chain of events before Birdsville Races got underway?
Yeah, look, really, we had a great event, but it certainly wasn't without its challenges. The Mother Nature really did throw everything at us, and that was probably the biggest, I guess, challenge that we faced in terms of the event. Is I think Australia's been having these really unforeseen and weather events, and we had a situation where, a couple of days out from our event, every road into Birdsville was closed, so you actually couldn't access the town. So the local councils and road workers were working overtime to try and make the roads suitable, and then they did open up, which was great. So we had thousands of people rolling into town, and then, as luck would have it, really the day before the event, the rain started in Birdsville, which we hadn't had the rain there, and it just kept coming really for a good 24 hours. So we had perfect weather in the lead up, and then the rain came and it turned into a bit of a mud bath for a couple of days there. It actually forced us to postpone the first day of the races, and then forced us really to work overtime on the track with graders and loaders and vehicles to essentially take the mud off the top of the track. We do race on a natural clay pan, and they worked for hours and hours on end in front of cheering crowds to get up, and it was really touch and go for a while there whether or not we'd actually race, but they worked tirelessly, and we got to race, and we had our full program in the end over 2 days, just not the same 2 days that we thought they'd be.
It must be harder for you logistically being racing in the outback.
It is. You can't really call in additional resources or help. You can only work with the equipment you've got and the people you've got, but they're people that are very experienced in working in that region. So, we're fortunate to have a couple of graders really on site and loaders and people that knew what they were doing. And we essentially had 5 to 6 personnel with various machineries and vehicles just doing laps of the track and clearing mud and fixing it up to make a safe racing surface. And they worked for hours and hours and hours. And I think if people had not been to the event before, we would have been odds at 100 to 1 if they were taking bets at the start of the day as to whether you'd race. And sure enough, the people that know what they're doing did what they had to do, and come 3:00 in the afternoon, or just after 3:00, we were racing, and we had hoped to race at 12:30, but a couple of extra hours of drying and track work, and we got going.
And these graders are big pieces of machinery.
Yeah, they are. They essentially had to take probably the top 3 to 4 inches of dirt off the track. So we're talking a track of a 2,200 metre circumference and anywhere from 10 to 20 metres wide. They literally had to take all of that off and move it to the side, and they effectively dug down to dry dirt. They just kept moving the mud, just pushing the mud until they got to dry dirt, and then pushed it all off to the side. So we actually couldn't start some races from the chutes. We start our 800 metre and our 1,000 metre race from a chute, but we couldn't do that. They simply didn't have time to get the chutes ready, so they all started from the course proper. So a little bit of a tighter turn tighter jump to the first turn for those races, but everything ran well, and the horses and jockeys got around safely, which is the most important thing.
And once you got started, did the delay for the crowd almost add to the anticipation of the racing?
It really did. It was a much longer race day than I think they'd hoped. We certainly finished later, and the sun was setting as the last people were leaving the course. But I think there was a overwhelming sense of appreciation to realise that the effort that I think the local community went into to have racing is something that I don't think anybody in Australia would have seen in their lifetime, and it wouldn't happen at any other race course in the country. Most people would have given up, but we couldn't give up for 2 reasons. One, we didn't want to disappoint the crowd or the participants, but 2, it probably would have been a catastrophic event financially if we didn't actually race.
Because people have made such an effort to get to Birdsville. It really is an event. As you say, the journey is part of it.
Yeah, that's right. Look, they've made an event to get there, and they had some really trying circumstances. Those people that were camped really on dirt, they were living in mud for a few days. It was actually really cold weather too, so it was quite cold. Lots of things just didn't go to plan, even the horses and the trainers. And we have some, and you'll probably see some photos that we have of horses literally walking from their campsites and their stables to the track through, 3, 4, 6 inches of water. They needed to do that because they couldn't actually get their horses with vehicles to the track from some areas. So they're literally walking horses through water in order to get to the track to race. So, everyone has a bit of a story to tell, and everyone went through some big challenges to make it work.
And what was the size of the crowd?
Look, it was in that range of sort of 3,500 to 4,000 people on our Cup day. Lower than obviously in a normal year. I think the road closures impacted that a little bit. Although everyone could get there if they wanted to, some people were not prepared to take the risk, or the timing wasn't going to work for them. So we were probably 10 to 20% down on what we thought we'd get come race day. But, all in all, we thought it was a great crowd, all things considered.
But legendary Australian Test cricketer, bowler, Glenn McGrath was there.
He was, yeah. He has a group that fly in, and they had a great time. He runs essentially a fly-in, fly. It's almost a pub crawl, which I'm sure many of your listeners would love to get on. But yeah, look, he's there, and he comes from a regional background himself. Loves travelling to outback Australia, and it's great to have people like Glenn that are willing to support events like ours.
What are your thoughts on the racing? There were slightly smaller fields. Yeah,
look, it certainly was probably our smallest racing field that we've had in modern history, and that's that wasn't ideal. But you can only race really who you're up against. So it did mean we almost had a state of origin situation where we had, trainers from Darwin, South Australia, New South Wales and Queensland. So we had 4 states contesting, and it was almost like a state of origin for every race. And it turned out that the Darwin won the event, and Philip Cole and his team. And, he travelled, I think it's about almost 2,500 kilometres each way, just to get to the event. So for him to be the leading trainer and pull it off, it was fantastic. We certainly didn't have big fields, and we'd love to have more in future, but the rain again, we had some trainers that had accepted their horses, but with road closures and uncertainty about when the rain would stop, they decided to turn around midway to Birdsville. So, you can't control the weather, but for those that made it, it was very lucrative and very rewarding.
And we'll be hearing from John Keating later. John, again, just failing to win the Birdsville Cup, he came second again.
I know. He was, he had I think he might have been pulling his hair out by the end of the event. I think he rode in almost every race, and I think he must have run 8 to 10 seconds of the 13 races that were there. So, probably quite a frustrating carnival for him. But, he's one of those people. This is on his bucket list, and he's run second a couple of times, and I've got a feeling that John will continue to return until he holds that cup aloft.
Well, let's hope so. After 2 Birdsville race meetings in 2022, when do plans begin for 2023?
Yeah, look, they've begun. I don't think planning for Birdsville ever stops, really. It's just one of those events. You roll from one cycle into the next. You look at the lessons that you learned. You pray that you don't have weather like we had this year again. But look, we're still got things in motion. Our event, we know it's the first Saturday in September, so 1st and 2nd of September 2023. We've already got people coming to us looking for tickets, and we'll be making an announcements about when tickets go on sale in the coming weeks. But we've got great demand. I mean, the media coverage that we had was fantastic, and for those people that are interested, it's probably whet their appetite, and they're starting to plan their trip, because it is something you need to plan a long time in advance. You can't decide one day to go to Birdsville the next. You do need to take the time to work out how you're going to get there and where you're going to stay and so forth. So plans are in motion, and very confident that it'll be a bigger and better event next year.
Well, let's hope this podcast and the other 3 I've done will entice a few more people from the UK to come across to Birdsville.
Absolutely. I mean, for those travelling to Australia, I mean, it's a perfect time really to come. The weather is brilliant. Nice warm, starting to warm up. And a great way. I mean, I think horse racing and sport in general is a great way to see any country that you go to. And Australia is no exception. I mean, lots of Australians love going over to the Ashes and so forth in England. And, we'd love to see the English coming over to come to the Birdsville Cup, the Spring Carnival and so forth. And that's really what we want to see next year.
Well, thanks again, Gary, for joining me on the Paddock and the Pavilion. And if you can keep the show on the road in 2022, you can do it any year.
That's right. Yeah, no, it was, I think we all got a few more greys, and I probably lost a little bit more hair over the week of the races. But look, it's always a rewarding experience to pull it off, and we're very grateful for those that make the journey to come and support it.
Welcome back, Gary, to the Paddock and the Pavilion.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Well, we've just heard the challenging story of Birdsville 2022. It's 10 days as we record before the start of the 2023 2-day meeting. How are preparations going?
Good. Yeah, much better that you look at the forward weather and it's not raining as it was in 2022. And that episode, I think, took a few years off our lives as organisers and stress and a few more grey hairs and a few less hair on top. But look, things are coming together really well for this year. We've got really good interest from racing participants. We've got horses and trainers and jockeys coming from as far away as Victoria, from Darwin, from Adelaide, from the Sunshine Coast. And for those on the listeners, what we're talking about, Darwin's about a 2,500 kilometre journey. Adelaide's about a 1,200 kilometre journey. Jockeys coming from Victoria, travelling 14, 15, 1,600 kilometres. So the fact that we've got great racing participants will make for great racing, and it'll put on a good show.
That must say a lot about Birdsville as a race meeting.
It is. Look, it's almost strange. It's got this aura about it, this draw card that people are desperate to attend, to participate. There's something so unique. There's no other race meeting that you'll travel so far for. And it is a destination in its own right. It's a challenge to get there. The journey's half the fun and half the challenges some of the times, but it really is unique and it's sought after. And, it's been going for, this is 141 years since the first meeting was run. So it's got a great history and it continues to pull people from across the country.
You mentioned about the journey. I've spoken to several spectators who are on the way to Birdsville 2023, and Andrew Redston, Reggie Potts, Bob Potts, who's 93. Can you tell us a bit more about the Birdsville Roadies?
Yeah, the Birdsville Races Roadies is a concept that we came up a few years ago, really to connect people, because you are travelling from so far and across the country. It's almost like the world's biggest car rally. There's thousands of vehicles all converging, and it's a car rally. It's like the Great Migration in Africa of the wildebeest, all heading in one direction at one time of year, and that's what the Birdsville Races is like. So you've got these cars, travellers, bikes, buses, aeroplanes, all converging on the centre of Australia. So we came up with the concept of a roadie. So people, it's free membership. You can, once you buy a ticket, you get yourself a door sticker. You can connect with other people en route. You can, should you wish to, you can say, look, who else is travelling from Melbourne? Do you want to travel together? Do you want to meet up en route? So on and so forth. So it's a really great way to connect, just to have a little bit of fun. I mean, it's great when you're pulling up to get fuel and you've still got 500 kilometres to go and you look beside you and someone else is sitting there with a sticker with their team name for the Birdsville Races Roadies, and you can start to build a rapport, build some camaraderie and make some friends and have a more fun journey and a great time when you get to Birdsville.
It's a great concept. It must help people when they're travelling.
Yeah, well, I think it does. For those that are travelling alone, it does give you the opportunity to connect, to find common ground with people. Also get a few benefits, a few discounts, cheaper places to stay en route and so forth. But it's really just about building a community. I mean, that's what people want, connections. They want to feel part of something. And that's, I think, what the roadies gives them, and what the races gives them, really. It's one of the places where everyone is equal. Everyone's camping. There's no 5-star accommodation in Birdsville and so forth. So it really is a great leveller and a great way for people to connect.
And to see a 93-year-old in Bob Potts to be coming across the outback to go racing.
Yeah, look, it's, again, you'll get people that have wanted all their life to come to the Birdsville Races and are finally doing it. Then you'll get the people, other groups that are, 80, 90 years old that come every year. It's just part of what they do. And look, you mentioned at the start that we're 10 days out. There's already been people camped on the river of Birdsville waiting for the races with their roadies, stickers on the side of the vehicle for a couple of weeks already. So people are getting there. They're getting the most sought after, the perfect camp spot, and they're just settling in for the build up and the excitement of the event.
I've even got Andrew, who's going to be on a future podcast. He's put the Paddock and the Pavilion logo on the back of his truck.
Well, there you go. It's starting to build a cult following in Australia.
Are you hoping to get more crowds this year? Because, I mean, the roads closures must have affected it last year.
Yeah, look, really challenging last year with the closures. Roads were closed in all directions a couple of days out from the event. So that not surprisingly, put the fear in a lot of people. Some people didn't continue to make the journey or didn't have vehicles that would make the journey. So that certainly dropped the crowd a little bit. We hope that'll return this year. There's no question there's some challenges with cost of living pressures are across Australia and the globe. But look, if the horse and participant numbers are anything to go by, we're confident we'll get a good crowd, and whatever it lands with, it'll be plenty for a small community like Birdsville to deal with.
One person who is again going to Birdsville Races on the 1st and 2nd of September is jockey John Keating, who still wants to win the Birdsville Cup.
Yeah, look, he's a great story, John. He's been coming up. Look, I don't even know how long. At least 50, I would say 10 to 15 years. Comes up on his own. He was desperately unlucky last year. I think he must have ridden about 8 or 9 seconds out of the 13 race card. Look, does a great job to get up there and supports the whole carnival. And that's what it does. It pulls people in. I mean, this year we've got a first timer. We've got someone with roots from Ireland, Emily Finnegan, a jockey from Adelaide, who's coming up to ride a horse in the Cup and get a couple of rides. And, great racing connection. Her father was a jockey in Ireland, and her grandfather, Cathal Finnegan, actually won the Irish Grand National in 1970. So, it's great to have the connection of people with long histories in racing, still keen to explore something new. And for a young Irish girl, tackling the desert is a big challenge and something that she's looking forward to.
Bigger field sizes in 2023?
Yeah, look, very. We're expecting very strong fields. It's a couple of days out from nominations closing as I talk to you, but significant horse numbers. Expecting really good fields in all races at this stage.
And is the event getting more TV coverage across Australia as well?
It is, yeah. Look, it's now that it's broadcast on the Sky Channel, so it can be watched worldwide. If you've got access to the Australian racing, you'll be able to see the Birdsville Races. So that's really great for the exposure. It's great for wagering and great for the participants who some of them, particularly the country trainers and jockeys, probably don't get on the TV racing, the Sky Channel very often. So it's really great and just great for the awareness. It's a beautiful part of the world, and we're very privileged to be able to showcase it on Sky Channel and other things during the carnival.
Because a lot of the jockeys are doing Batuta before and then Baduri afterwards.
Yeah, that's right. There's a core group. I mean, there will still be ones that just come for Birdsville, but there is a core group of trainers and jockeys. The first trainers, I think, will arrive in Birdsville a few days before Batuta. They make Birdsville their base, do the Batuta Carnival, Birdsville, then Baduri. Look, it's again, the Simpson Desert Racing Carnival has been going for a long time. Batuta and Baduri are much smaller than Birdsville, but they are really, I guess, the more traditional country race meetings of a few hundred people. Still great places to go to. They're very different to Birdsville, but they've got their unique charm, and certainly, we'd encourage people to go to all of them if they're coming out this way.
But generally, from what you're saying, more and more jockeys and trainers are bringing horses from all over Australia.
Yeah, that's right. Look, I think the average distance travelled for a trainer to Birdsville is in the vicinity of about 1,000 kilometres. But the fact that, a small town in outback Australia of 100 people can attract horses from Darwin, from Adelaide, from the coast, from New South Wales. So we've got trainers and jockeys being represented from 5 states and or territories, which is, a great testament, I guess, to the draw card of Birdsville and also just the racing industry. It is a great industry where people really do get behind these smaller carnivals as well.
Well, let's hope you don't need those graders this year, and you have a more relaxing time when you arrive in Birdsville. I don't know when you're actually getting there yourself.
Yeah, look, I'll be getting there the next few days. The graders, the ironic thing, we spent so much time making the track raceable last year, and the last few weeks they've been spending their time repairing and putting back all the dirt that they took off last year that was mud. They've been putting that back on the surface to make it safe and good for this year. So it's an interesting circle of work there, but looking forward to it for sure.
Well, the very best of luck to you and your team. I'm sure there'll be a fantastic atmosphere at Birdsville Races on Friday the 1st of September and Saturday the 2nd of September for the Birdsville Cup.
Great. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Sports Social Podcast Network.